This is Cyberman, gaming, Linux, IT, lifestyle, all in one place. Cyberman. In today's episode, gaming on Linux. Starting in 3, 2, 1, go. So, you built a new gaming PC, installed Linux, and now you want to play games because you heard Linux gaming is actually in a pretty good place right now. These are some small tweaks and checks you should go through on a new system, a little so-called sanity check. Important note, this is not an optimal setup. I am currently using Ubuntu 24 and my GPU is a 6750 XT. Not exactly top of the line. NVIDIA hardware and settings will be covered in another video. There are better gaming distros out there right now, and we will test all of them eventually, but for now I'm using the hardware and resources I already have. And I'll show you that the difference mostly comes down to what ships pre-packaged, because most things can be installed manually if needed. This is a realistic upgrade scenario. You had some components already, bought a few new ones, maybe this is your first more powerful PC, or maybe like me in this case, you were using integrated graphics until now and finally ordered a newer dedicated GPU. You installed the graphics card, powered on the PC, and you have picture. For starters, fantastic. And not only did you get a picture, you also remembered to plug the video cable into the GPU instead of the motherboard. In another video of this series, I mentioned that AMD has shaky HDMI 2.1 support on Linux, so it's recommended to use DisplayPort because there are basically no issues there. At the time of recording, the news is that AMD submitted an upstream kernel update request, which should bring proper HDMI 2.1 implementation to Linux. But again, DisplayPort, zero problems. Number 1, get familiar with some useful tools. LSPCI will list all PCI devices on the system, including your graphics card, and with the verbose -VVV option, it gives you even more information. Here you can see my GPU and the driver the kernel is using for it. LSHW-C display gives similar information. INC is a powerful tool with lots of options. I have this little bash one-liner script, if you can even call it a script. Probably should have just been an alias. I called it Specky after the famous Windows program. You can learn basically everything about your system with it. Take a quick look at OpenGL, Vulkan, and Mesa too. The Windows equivalent would be something like older DirectX era APIs, OpenGL, DirectX 12, Vulkan, Mesa, the user space graphics stack that, loosely speaking, translates API calls into something your GPU understands. That's basically the graphics stack. The important thing is simply verifying that everything is installed correctly and up to date. Also, check which display server your system is using. Traditionally, Linux used X11, but recently Wayland has been taking over, and eventually X11 will become legacy. It's important to know this because of certain compatibility issues. Once that's done, just install Steam. We'll talk another time about alternative methods to install games, if you know what I mean. If you're on Ubuntu or another Debian-based distro, sudo apt install Steam, and that's it. I already have Steam installed, so nothing's gonna happen for me, but you'll see a bunch of scary text flying around in the terminal. Ooh. Now, sometimes little issues frustrate people so much they go, screw this, I'm going back to Windows, who wants to deal with this nonsense? For example, maybe you try opening the properties menu for a game and it doesn't work. Why? Well, one quick Google search fixes everything. Go to settings, interface, and click this little compatibility thingy right there. Another thing that can happen, you search for a game in Steam, keep clicking it, and it refuses to open from the drop-down menu. Install GNOME Tweaks if you don't already have it. Go to Windows, Window Focus, and disable Click to Focus. Mine was set to Hover Focus. Maybe it happens to you, maybe it doesn't. But if somebody is losing their mind over this stuff, hopefully they find my video and it makes life a little easier. Linux native versus Windows version of games. Some games have official Linux support, some don't. When you open Steam settings compatibility, you'll see Steam Play enabled globally. Steam Play is Valve's implementation of Proton, which uses Wine behind the scenes to run Windows software on Linux. There used to be an option to disable Steam Play globally, but now that option is gone. However, you can still control it per game individually. The idea is, if a game has native Linux support, Steam will launch that version automatically, unless you specifically tell Steam, hey, use Proton for this game instead. I want the Windows version. And why would you do that? Well, Sometimes one version performs better than the other. It depends on the game, and you'll figure out what works best for you over time. A good way to check Linux or Steam Deck compatibility is a site called ProtonDB. There you can see which games work well on Linux and which don't. You can browse popular titles and notice that many of them have native support and run perfectly. Then you can open something like Red Dead Redemption 2, see what other users are saying about it, which distro they're using, their hardware specs, in what tweaks they had to make, the so-called tinker steps to make their game run optimally. And sometimes you'll even see people say the game runs even better than on Windows, although online modes are often where Linux games run into problems. Now, we're going to launch a game, and we'll start easy with something from 25 years ago, so realistically there's nothing to test or benchmark. It would probably run on a calculator. But since I'm planning to stream a Baldur's Gate mega campaign soon, that's what we'll launch. Before that, we'll pretend the game is demanding and that we want to benchmark FPS and stuff, so we'll install MangoHUD, the most popular Linux overlay tool. The Windows equivalent would be Riva Tuner. As you can see, you can install it from source, compile it manually, download their installation script, or, easiest of all, your distro probably already has it in the repository. Sudo apt install MangoHUD, and that's it. Then you add this to your launch options, and the default toggle hotkey is right shift plus F12. And we're gaming on Linux. As you can see, it's not complicated at all. I hope I helped somebody or cleared up some doubts, or maybe got somebody interested in Linux gaming, and hopefully you'll like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoy the content. See you around. Ciao.